Hi guys, it's Roger here, and today we will be scripting the first part of our game, which will be the infinite cylinders that will be coming across the map and which you're going to have to avoid. Now, as I'm expecting, most of you guys have downloaded the file with the gameplays or have accessed the game and got the file of the game in order to have all these little, builds and little effects inside. So let's start off. In the past lessons, we learned about C-frames, tween service, positioning, and so on. And today we're going to combine all of that knowledge in order to script the first part of our game. So if you go to replicated storage, you will see there is a thing known as a wall. If you parent it to Workspace, it'll appear. Now what happens is there are 3 parts, which are the cylinders. So each of these cylinders is going to be it's going to be the obstacle, and all of them are welded to a little part down here. Now, since they're all welded, they are all going to move with this part, invisible part right here. And our goal is to tween this part to a second part right here to create an effect as if this wall is gliding towards the wall, towards the ball. Like this. Now let me disable my show welds, which shows how all the welds are in the game, and let me put the wall back into replicated storage, and let me create a local script. And first off, what we're gonna have to do is take control of the player's camera. If you play the game right now, there is a little spawn block on top of here. You can see that our camera is focused on our character. What we have to do is we're going to have to take the camera and we're going to have to focus it on the ball. So first off, what we're going to do actually is we're going to add a couple of invisible walls so that while we're loading in the game, the player will not fall off while we're loading in. So here's the invisible wall. Let's just select all of them, make sure they're all anchored, which means they won't be falling off, won't be affected by the gravity, and just make them transparent. There we go. And to make it more organized, let's have a folder, call it walls, and put it into that folder. Alright, so here are the walls. Now, in the script, in order to get the player's camera, what you're going to do is you're going to go into Workspace, and if you put dot and you type in current camera, what this gets is the player's current camera. And you usually assign it to a variable, and let's call it camera. Now, each camera has a subject and a type and a C-frame. So what the subject is what's the camera going to be focusing on? Our camera subject will be a little invisible part you will find in the workspace known as cam part. Now, our goal is to focus on this part, right? And it'll be as if it's like a window that will look on our ball. So we're positioning our camera on this part, so it'll be, focused on the ball. The part is like our little window for the ball. In order to do that, you're going to take the camera and change the camera subject. To get a camera's subject, you're going to say the camera, and then you put dot and then camera subject. And then our new camera subject will be in Workspace known as cam part. We then have to change the type to camera dot camera type to enum. Enum's like a little library with a lot of stuff. Dot camera type dot scriptable. So there we have the camera. Let me zoom in. Which, if we play now, is not going to be on the ball because I messed up. We have to actually also change the camera's position, because all that does is it takes the camera away from the player. Now we're going to have to position it. And a camera actually also has a C-frame, so we can easily just say camera.cframe equals workspace.campart.cframe. There we go. Now if we play, you can see that our camera is focused on the ball. Great. So now we have the camera done. Let's separate it with some lines. There we go. Now we're going to create a function, and that's called moving walls. And we're going to call this function just when the script fires. So we'll just keep this function temporarily. We're going to have to edit it in a future video, but for now this will work fine. And we're going to have to keep on generating these walls and then moving them. And in order to not have lag, because if you have a bunch of these walls in Workspace and all of them will never be deleted, the game will start to lag. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the wall, going to move it behind the ball, so when it's not visible, you'll delete it. So that way you will create a wall while deleting another one. So what we do is we have to think about this. How are we going to create something infinitely? Well, we're going to have to use a loop, and that's going to be an infinite loop. And an infinite loop we can use is, if you watched my videos, is while true do. Now this is a loop that will infinitely run until it's broken. Now, what we're going to have to do is first, we're going to have to get a copy of this wall from replicated storage and put in the workspace so that it's visible for the player. In order to copy something, you can clone it by using the clone function of Roblox. So what you do is you get the part by saying game.replicated-storage.wall. So that's the part, right? And in order to clone it, you do clone. What this does is it copies the wall. And if we assign it to a variable, wall, for example, we can then easily just say wall.parent equals workspace. Now here we have 2 lines of code. What it does is it copies this wall and puts it into workspace. Clone function right here duplicates the wall. And this right here sets its parent to workspace. Now, if you really think about it, we can't just set it to workspace and expect it to be all perfectly positioned and everything. So what I already did for you guys is I created 2 parts, which are the exact copies of move part, without the cylinders, that will be our position markers. This way we can easily get the position without actually having to calculate exactly where it has to go. We'll just have 2 parts, and what will happen is we have end part and spawn area. And what will happen is we spawn the wall, position it quickly to this part, and then tween it to this part, and then we destroy the wall. Now that is actually quite easy to do. Since our spawn area is known as spawn area, what we do is we say the wall, and then we do move part dot cframe equals workspace dot spawn area dot cframe. Now, why did I do move part and not just wall.cframe? Well, you see, wall itself is the model, and we can't really use the C-frame for the model unless we do move to or set primary C-frame. We don't have to do that in this case, because what we did is we welded all of the cylinders to this one part. So if we set the move part's C-frame to something new, it will be positioned there along with all of the things that are welded to it. So we're basically moving this one part and everything else adjusts with it. That is why we're taking the move part C-frame, because it's the part that everything is welded to. And we're setting to the spawn area C-frame, which is the default location I put into the game. Now if we play, actually no, we will not have to play. Stop it. Stop. We will crash actually, because we're infinitely generating a bunch of these walls. It'll crash. There we go. What we're gonna do actually is we're gonna have to add a weight, a temporary weight, for example. So just so we can see how it's getting generated. So as you can see, the cylinder is there. It's getting actually generated a bunch of times. Now, next what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to move this wall to the end position. Now, in our previous video, we were talking about tween service. We are actually gonna tween the wall to the end position. So let's create a tween service. Let's get the tween service. Tween service. And it's a service in the game, so we're gonna have to use get service in order to get that service. Because Roblox doesn't want to give all the services right away, because it's not needed unless you're actually using it. So we're gonna use get service, and in quotes, like we always did, we're gonna do tween service. So now we have tween service. Great, now we're gonna have to create our tween. Now in our previous video, I showed you guys how to create a tween. So we're just gonna simply create one. Let's call it wall tween. And we're gonna have to do tween service. Create. And our first parameter, like always, is what we're gonna be tweening. So wall dot move part. And now we're gonna have to give it the tween info. So tween info.new. And now we're gonna have to say how much time it should be tween. So how long it'll take the wall to go from the spawn area to the end area. We're gonna do it for 5 seconds. And we're gonna describe the easing style as linear, and the easing direction as in out. So, it's gonna be pretty much just a straight line. And lastly, in a small table, we're gonna be describing what we're changing, and that's the C-frame of move part. And its new C-frame will be workspace dot end area dot C-frame. So end area is just the part right here behind the ball, and we're just getting its C-frame and smoothly moving the wall from the beginning to the end. Now before we play, we're gonna have to actually destroy the part after it got tweened to the area. Now we could either do wait 5, or we can do what we did in the previous video, wall tween dot completed wait. So what this does is it waits until the tween is completed. And once it is, what we're gonna do is we're gonna just destroy the wall by using the destroy function. All this does is it takes the wall and it deletes it. It's no longer there. What this does is it waits until the tween is completed. We learned about this in the previous video. Now, what we lastly have to do is what I forgot to do was actually playing the tween. So we're gonna have to take the wall tween, and we're actually gonna have to play it. So, but just using play. Now, if we play, you can see that the walls are moving. Now we're going to actually have to make it smoother, because right now what's happening is this wall behind it does not exist and it's getting generated, and that does not create a beautiful infinite map thing. It shows the player that the cylinders are being generated. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to have a wait 3 right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to wait 3 seconds, start its tween, and then right away generate a new wall, which will wait then 3 seconds and start a tween again. Now if we run it, play the game, we have walls being generated as well already that are automatically already coming in. So this gives us a nice infinite runner feel. We will also tween the ball, which will make it look as if it's smoothly rolling. Now, we're gonna actually have to also destroy this wall. So an optimal way to do this is we're gonna have to use a thing known as spawn. Now what spawn is it pretty much makes Roblox run code parallelly at the same time. Now this is technically not possible. Roblox runs each line of code at a time, one line of code at a time. But what spawn does is it creates an effect as if multiple lines of code are being read at the same time. Now we can just type in spawn, parentheses, and in these parentheses we're gonna have to spawn a function. So we can have either a function right here defined, or we can just say we spawn a function, we can define it inside the parentheses, and then that will happen. So what we're doing actually is we're having the spawn and we're just typing in the function inside. So that's why you see sometimes some ends having little closing parentheses. That's because all we're doing is we're creating the function inside the spawn, and it's enclosed in the spawn parentheses. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to wait till the wall tween is completed, and then we just destroy the wall. Now if we play and we look in the workspace, we have a wall. It's again tween 2 walls, 3 walls already, and a wall gets destroyed, another wall gets destroyed, and so on. So basically we have 2 walls in the workspace at the same time, and the third one gets destroyed as soon as it's tweened. So this gives us a nice effect. All right. Now that we have our walls moving, we can now have the ball spin to create an even better effect. So to do that, let's group the 2 parts of the ball, which is light part and ball, which will give us an effect that the ball is actually spinning, and call it ball. And let's call the ball main part. So basically we're just making one model. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna have to create another function, and let's call it spin ball. And what right now we're gonna have to do with moving balls is we're gonna have to make it run at the same time as spin ball. Because remember I told you guys that Roblox runs each line of code separately, one at a time. Well, if we call the function moving balls that infinitely runs, then everything under here will never be executed because it'll infinitely run this block of code. In order to prevent that, we're just going to do spawn. And in parentheses, we'll say moving walls. And that way, this function right here will run at the same time as this function. Now, as in moving walls, we'll just have a while true do loop. And we're going to call it outside right here, as well with a spawn. Spin ball. And in here, we're going to actually have to create two tweens. One tween rotating the ball 180 degrees, and another 180. So full rotation. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to create a tween, and let's create it here. Let's call it T1 equals tween service, create. And we're going to be tweening the main part because the light part is welded to the main part. So we're going to do workspace dot ball dot main part. We're going to have the tween info. And let's say 1 second, and then ename that using style linear and out. And we're going to tween the C frame to be the workspace dot ball dot main part dot C frame. So we're going to set it to its own C frame, but we're going to offset it by C frame dot angles. So we're going to change its angle by 0 math.rad, make it into radians like we learned in the C frame video, 180, and then 0. There we go. Now, we're going to have to then create a second tween. We're going to create the second tween after we create the first tween and after we play the first tween. So we play the first tween. And we'll just do wait 1 second for now. We create the second tween. And we do play it out. And wait 1 second. Now if we play, my bad, we are tweening it in the wrong direction, on the wrong axis. So we did it on the y-axis, and the y-axis is actually vertical, so the ball will spin like this. And we're gonna have to do it on the x-axis. I believe I put on the z-axis, so I'll show you what will happen if we put on the z-axis. It's spinning perfectly in the other direction. Yeah, that's why we're gonna actually have to do it on the x-axis. So we'll just make it rotate on the x-axis. So essentially what we're doing is we're smoothly rotating the ball 180 degrees, and then we're creating a new tween which will rotate it another 180 degrees. Now if we play, our ball is rolling. And we can actually speed it up. Let's say it's going to be half a second, because currently it is a bit slow. So if we make it half a second, 2 times faster, we have a nice effect as if the ball is rolling infinitely. Anyways, that will be it for this video today. I am glad that you guys have watched it, if you have watched it fully. And in the future videos, we'll learn more about Lua, and then we'll add more functions to our game, so that one of the cylinders in the wall will be disappearing, and we'll go and adding a way to move the ball to the sides. Anyways, thank you for watching. Bye.